The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. Marcus held his 7-year-old son's hand as they sat in the emergency room at 2:47 a.m., waiting. Ethan's fever had spiked to 104, and nothing would bring it down. But when Dr. Sarah Chen walked through those double doors and saw the boy's face, she stopped breathing. Those eyes, that smile even through the pain, it was impossible. Her sonth one, she'd given up 8 years ago, was supposed to be living across the country with his adoptive family. Yet here he was, calling another man Dad. Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe and leave a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? The emergency room smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Marcus Reeves shifted in the plastic chair, his son's small hand burning against his palm. The fever had climbed steadily through the night, first 101, then 102.5, finally spiking to 104 despite the Tylenol and cool baths. Ethan's head lolled against his father's shoulder, dark hair damp with sweat. "Dad?" The boy's voice came out as a whisper. "I'm right here, buddy. My head hurts." Marcus pressed his lips to his son's forehead. Still burning. They'd been waiting 43 minutes. He'd counted every one. The waiting room buzzed with fluorescent lights and muffled conversations. An elderly man coughed in the corner. A mother rocked a crying baby. A teenager held an ice pack to his wrist. Normal emergency room chaos. But nothing about tonight felt normal. Marcus had been a single father for 3 years now, ever since the accident. He'd learned to navigate fevers and scraped knees and bedtime stories alone. He'd become an expert at school pickup lines and grocery shopping with a cart full of goldfish crackers and juice boxes. He'd mastered the art of being both mother and father, but this fever was different. This fever scared him. Ethan Reeves? A nurse appeared with a clipboard. Middle-aged, kind eyes, scrubs covered in cartoon animals. "Here," Marcus stood, lifting his son in his arms. Ethan had always been small for his age, 7 years old, but built like a 5-year-old. Delicate bones, serious eyes that seemed too old for his face. They followed the nurse through double doors, past other families waiting behind curtains. The sounds changed, back Hera machines beeping, urgent voices, the squeak of wheels on linoleum. Room 7. The nurse pulled aside a blue curtain. "The doctor will be right in." The examination room was stark and cold. Marcus settled Ethan on the paper-covered table, pulling a thin hospital blanket around his shoulders. "I want to go home," Ethan whispered. "We will, buddy, as soon as the doctor checks you out." Marcus had adopted Ethan when the boy was 4. The process had taken 18 months, background checks, home visits, interviews that felt like interrogations. But the moment he'd seen Ethan's file, something had clicked into place. A motherless boy and a childless man, finding each other across all the broken places. The adoption agency had told him almost nothing about Ethan's birth parents. Young mother, unable to care for him. She wanted a closed adoption. Complete fresh start for everyone involved. That was it. No names, no history, no family medical records that might have been useful right now. Marcus stroked his son's hair. "Remember when you had that fever last year? You were fine the next day." "This feels different." It did feel different. Marcus had learned to trust his instincts as a father, and every instinct was screaming that something was wrong. Footsteps in the hallway. The curtain moved. "Good morning, I'm Dr. Chen." The woman who stepped into the room was small and precise, with black hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wore wire-rimmed glasses and scrubs that looked like they'd been pressed. Professional. Competent. She glanced at the chart in her hands. "So we have a 7-year-old with high fever. Let's take a look." She looked up then, her eyes moving from the clipboard to Ethan's face, and froze. The clipboard slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Her face went white, then gray, like all the blood had suddenly drained away. "Doctor?" Marcus stood. "Are you all right?" Dr. Chen didn't answer. She was staring at Ethan with an expression Marcus couldn't read. Not quite recognition, but something close to it. Something that made the air in the room feel suddenly thin. Ethan looked up at her with those serious dark eyes, the ones that had captured Marcus's heart 3 years ago. Are you going to make me feel better? The question seemed to break whatever spell had fallen over the room. Dr. Chen blinked rapidly, bent to retrieve her clipboard, straightened her glasses. Yes, she said quietly. Yes, I'm going to try. But her hands were shaking as she reached for her stethoscope. Marcus watched her carefully. In 3 years of parenting, he'd developed a sixth sense for when something was off, and everything about this doctor's reaction felt off. Have we met before? He asked. No. The word came out too quickly. I don't think so. Let me examine your son. She approached the table slowly, like she was afraid of getting too close. When she placed the stethoscope on Ethan's chest, Marcus noticed her hands trembling. Deep breath, sweetheart. Ethan breathed in. The doctor moved the stethoscope to different positions, listening. Her professional mask was back in place, but Marcus could see something underneath it. Something raw and desperate. Any family history of illness I should know about? She asked without looking up. We don't have family medical history. Ethan's adopted. This time she did look up. Their eyes met across the examination table. Adopted? 3 years ago, when he was 4. And before that? Marcus felt Ethan's small hand slip into his. Foster care. His birth mother. Well, the agency said she was young. Couldn't care for him. Dr. Chen's face went white again. She turned away, busying herself with taking Ethan's temperature. The digital thermometer beeped. 103.8. We need to bring this fever down, she said to the wall. I'm going to order some tests. Blood work. Maybe a chest x-ray. Is he going to be okay? Marcus asked. She finally looked at him again. Most childhood fevers resolve on their own, but we want to be thorough. Most childhood fevers. Not his fever, not Ethan's fever. Marcus noticed the distinction. I'll be back in a few minutes, Dr. Chen said. She moved toward the curtain, then stopped. Turned back. Your son, she said quietly, he's lucky to have you. Something in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten. Thank you. She disappeared through the curtain, leaving them alone. Ethan shifted on the table. I don't like her. Why not? She looked sad. Really, really sad. Marcus pulled the blanket tighter around his son's shoulders. Sometimes grown-ups have sad things happen to them. Like when Mommy died? They rarely talked about Emma anymore. Marcus's wife had been gone for 3 years now, killed by a drunk driver on her way home from work. Ethan barely remembered her, but he understood that she'd existed, that she'd loved them both and then been taken away. Something like that, maybe. Outside their room, Marcus could hear Dr. Chen's voice in the hallway, speaking quietly to someone. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was urgent, strained. A few minutes later, she returned with a nurse who drew blood from Ethan's arm. The boy was brave, only whimpering a little when the needle went in. Results will be back in about an hour, Dr. Chen said. In the meantime, we'll start you on some IV fluids and stronger fever reducers. The nurse inserted an IV into Ethan's small hand. Marcus watched his son's face, looking for signs of pain or fear, but Ethan was studying Dr. Chen with that intense way he had of looking at people. Do you have kids? Ethan asked her suddenly. The question hung in the air like smoke. Dr. Chen's hands stilled on the IV tubing. She cleared her throat. I had a son once. What happened to him? Marcus started to intervene. It wasn't appropriate to ask such personal questions, but something in Dr. Chen's expression stopped him. I had to give him away, she said quietly. When he was very little. Why? Because I couldn't take care of him the way he deserved. Ethan considered this with the gravity of a much older child. Do you miss him? Every day. The honesty in her voice made Marcus's throat tight. He watched her face, saw the carefully controlled pain there, and understood suddenly that they were witnessing something private. Something that probably shouldn't be happening in an emergency room at 3 a.m. What was his name? Ethan asked. Dr. Chen's composure finally cracked. A single tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. I called him Ethan, she whispered. The room went completely silent. Marcus felt the world tilt sideways. His son's hand tightened in his, and he looked down to see those serious dark eyes staring up at him with perfect understanding. "Dad?" Ethan's voice was very small. "I think she's my mom. Doctor." Chen sat down hard in the plastic chair beside the bed, her hands covering her face, and Marcus realized that everything he thought he knew about his family was about to change. The fever seemed less important now. The blood tests, the IV, the hospital room, all of it, faded into background noise as Marcus stared at the woman who might be his son's birth mother. The woman who had given Ethan away 8 years ago. The woman who was now responsible for making him, well. Outside the room, machines beeped and voices called out, medical terminology and normal emergency room life continued. But inside room 7, 3 people sat in the kind of silence that comes before everything falls apart, or falls into place. Marcus wasn't sure which yet. Dr. WWWWW. Sarah Chen kept her hands pressed to her face for a long moment, trying to remember how to breathe. When she finally looked up, Marcus was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Protective, maybe. Wary. Ethan had fallen asleep against his father's chest, the fever medication finally taking effect. "Is it true?" Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. Sarah's training kicked in patient confidentiality, professional boundaries, the 1,000 rules that governed her world. But none of those rules covered this. None of them told her what to do when the child you gave up 8 years ago appeared in your emergency room at 3 a.m. "I need to step outside," she managed. "Dr. Chen, 5 minutes. "I'll be back in 5 minutes." She pushed through the curtain and walked quickly down the hallway, past other rooms where other families waited for other doctors to solve other problems. Normal problems. Treatable problems. The bathroom was empty. Sarah locked the door and gripped the sink, staring at her reflection in the harsh fluorescent light. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, pale, shaken, unprofessional. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times over the years. What she would say if she ever saw her son again. How she would explain why she'd given him away. How she would tell him that not a day had passed when she didn't wonder if he was happy, if he was loved, if he remembered anything about those first few months when it had been just the two of them. But she had never imagined it like this. Not with him sick and her wearing scrubs and a man she didn't know calling himself Dad. A man who was clearly devoted to Ethan. She'd seen it in the way he held him, spoke to him, watched for signs of pain. This wasn't duty or obligation. This was love, the kind of love she hadn't been able to give at 19. Sarah splashed cold water on her face and tried to think like a doctor instead of a mother. Ethan had a high fever of unknown origin. That was the priority. Everything else could wait. Had to wait. When she returned to room 7, Marcus was still holding his sleeping son. But his eyes were alert, watchful. "His temperature's down to 101, Marcus said quietly. "The 4 seems to be helping." Sarah checked the monitors, made notes on the chart. "Normal doctor things, safe things. The blood work should be back soon," she said. "Dr. Chen." She looked up. "Is he your son?" The question was direct, impossible to deflect. Sarah set down her pen and met his eyes. "I think so," she said quietly. "The timing is right. The age—" "He looks." She paused. "He looks exactly like my father did at that age." Marcus nodded slowly. "The adoption agency said his birth mother was young, that she wanted a closed adoption. I was 19, in my second year of college." The words came out flat, clinical. "No family support. No way to care for a baby and finish school." "So you gave him up?" "I gave him to a family in Chicago, the Hendersons. They were older, established. He was going to have everything I couldn't give him." Marcus frowned. "We're not the Hendersons. I adopted Ethan from foster care here in Denver." The bottom dropped out of Sarah's world again. "Foster care?" "He'd been in the system for about a year when I found him. The agency said his previous placement hadn't worked out." Sarah sat down hard. "That's impossible. The Hendersons were supposed to. They were going to love him. They promised they would love him. Her voice cracked on the last word. Marcus looked down at his sleeping son, then back at her. "What happened?" "I don't know." Sarah's professional composure was gone now. "I signed the papers when he was 6 weeks old. Closed adoption meant no contact, no updates. I trusted the agency to place him with a good family." "They did," Marcus said quietly. "Eventually." The weight of those words settled between them. Eventually. After how long in foster care? After how many failed placements? After how much uncertainty and fear for a small boy who should have been safe and loved from the beginning? "I need to call the lab," Sarah said, standing too quickly. "Check on those blood results." "Dr. Chen Sarawait." She turned back. "He's okay," Marcus said. "I know this is complicated, but he's okay. He's happy. He's loved." Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. "I just need you to know that," Marcus continued. "Whatever questions you have, whatever you're feeling right now, he's okay." The kindness in his voice almost broke her. She managed a nod and left the room again. The blood results were waiting at the nurse's station. Sarah scanned them quickly, her medical training overriding everything else. White blood cell count elevated but not dangerously so. No signs of bacterial infection, probably viral. Good news, normal news. The kind of news she delivered to worried parents dozens of times each week. But when she returned to room 7, nothing about this felt normal. Ethan was awake now, sitting up against his pillows. His color was better, the fever clearly breaking. "Feeling better?" Sarah asked. He nodded. "My head doesn't hurt anymore." "That's good. Your blood work looks normal. I think you just picked up a virus, probably from school or the playground. Your body fought it off." "So we can go home?" Marcus asked. "Soon. I want to observe him for another hour or so. Make sure the fever doesn't spike again." Marcus nodded. "Thank you." An awkward silence settled over the room. Sarah busied herself checking Ethan's the fourth, taking his temperature again, doing normal doctor things, while trying not to stare at the child she had carried for 9 months. He was beautiful. Not just because he was hers, though, that was part of it, but objectively beautiful. Dark hair that curled a little at the ends, serious eyes that seemed to take in everything, a mouth that looked like it smiled easily when he wasn't sick. "Dr. Chen?" Ethan's voice was stronger now. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If you're my mommy first mom, why did you give me away?" The question she had been dreading, the one she had practiced answering in her head but never out loud. Sarah glanced at Marcus, who nodded slightly. Permission, maybe. Or just understanding that this conversation needed to happen. "I was very young," Sarah said carefully. "Younger than you can probably imagine. I was still in school, trying to become a doctor. I didn't have any money or family to help me." "But you loved me?" The question hit her like a physical blow. "Yes," she whispered. "I loved you so much." "Then why?" "Because sometimes loving someone means making sure they have the best life possible, even if that life isn't with you." Ethan considered this with that serious expression he got when he was thinking hard. "But I ended up in foster care," he said. "That's not the best life." Sarah felt Marcus tense beside the bed. "No," she said quietly, "that's not what was supposed to happen. The family I chose for you, they were supposed to take care of you forever." "What went wrong?" Sarah looked at Marcus, silently asking if this was okay. If it was appropriate to be having this conversation with a 7-year-old at 4 in the morning in a hospital room. "It's okay," Marcus said. "He knows his story, most of it anyway." Sarah turned back to Ethan. "I don't know what went wrong, but I know what went right." "What?" "You found your dad. The right dad. The one who loves you and takes care of you and brings you to the hospital when you're sick." Marcus's eyes softened. "Thank you for saying that. It's true." Sarah meant it. She could see it in everything about them. The way Ethan automatically leaned into Marcus's touch, the way Marcus watched his son's face for signs of discomfort, the easy familiarity between them. This was a real family, built on love and choice and time. "Are you sad that I have a different dad?" Ethan asked. The question was so innocent, so direct, that Sarah had to look away for a moment. "No, sweetheart, I'm happy." I'm so happy that you have someone who loves you the way you deserve. But are you sad that it's not you? This time Sarah couldn't answer right away. The truth was too complicated, too adult, too wrapped up in 8 years of wondering and regret and carefully managed grief. It's complicated, she said finally. Ethan nodded like this made perfect sense. Dad says that about grown-up things sometimes. Marcus smiled. Dr. Chen, would you like to sit down? You look tired. She was tired, exhausted actually. The emotional whiplash of the last hour had left her feeling wrung out. She sat in the plastic chair beside Ethan's bed. Can I tell you about school? Ethan asked suddenly. I'd like that. I'm in 2nd grade. My teacher is Mrs. Patterson, and she's really nice. I like reading the best, but I'm also good at math. Dad helps me with my homework every night. Sarah listened as Ethan told her about his friends, his favorite books, the soccer team he played on last fall, normal 7-year-old things. The life she had imagined for him but never quite believed in. Marcus occasionally added detail show Ethan had scored the winning goal in his last game, how he'd read all the Harry Potter books twice, how he wanted to be a veterinarian when he grew up. Like you wanted to be a doctor when you were little? Ethan asked, turning to Sarah. Actually, I wanted to be a teacher first, then a doctor when I got older. Why did you change your mind? I realized I wanted to help people feel better. Like you're helping me feel better? Yes, like that. A comfortable silence fell over the room. Sarah watched Ethan's eyelids grow heavy again, the fever breaking, his body finally able to rest. Dr. Chen? Marcus's voice was quiet. What happens now? She knew what he was asking. Not about Ethan's medical care, that was straightforward. He was asking about everything else. About the fact that his son's birth mother had just walked back into their lives. I don't know, she said honestly. I never expected this. Neither did we. Sarah looked at Ethan, who was fighting sleep but losing. He seems happy, really happy. He is. It took a while. He was pretty guarded when I first adopted him, but he's secure now. He knows he's loved. Good, Sarah meant it. That's all I ever wanted for him. Marcus leaned back in his chair, still holding Ethan's hand. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you regret it? Giving him up? The question she had been asking herself for 8 years. I regret that he ended up in foster care, she said carefully. I regret that the plan I made for him didn't work out, but do I regret giving him to you? No. I don't think I could have given him what you've given him. You don't know that. I was 19, Marcus. I was broke and scared and alone. I had no idea how to be a mother. Most people don't at first. Sarah looked at him more carefully. There was something in his voice, understanding maybe, like he knew what it felt like to be unprepared for parenthood. Were you ready when you adopted him? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. My wife and I had been trying to have kids for years. Fertility treatments, miscarriages, the whole nightmare. When Emma was killed, I thought I'd lost my chance at being a father forever. Sarah's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Adopting Ethan saved my life, gave me a reason to keep going. He looked down at his sleeping son. But was I ready? Hell no. I had no idea what I was doing. Still don't, most of the time. But you're doing it anyway. Because I love him. Because he needed someone to love him. Sarah felt tears threatening again. That's what I couldn't do. Love him and take care of him at the same time. I was too young, too scared, too overwhelmed. You were 19, Marcus said quietly. Give yourself some credit. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Ethan sleep. His fever was completely gone now, his breathing deep and even. What do we do now? Marcus asked again. Sarah took a deep breath. I don't know. I don't want to disrupt his life. But I'd like to know him, if that's okay with you. Marcus studied her face. You're not going to try to take him away? No. The word came out firm, certain. He's your son. You're his father. I can see that. But you're his mother too. I'm the woman who gave birth to him. You're the one who's actually mothered him for the last 3 years. Marcus smiled sadly. That's not how biology works. It's how love works. Outside the room, the hospital was waking up. Dawn was breaking somewhere beyond the windowless walls, and the day shift would be arriving soon. Normal life resuming. But nothing about this night had been normal, and Sarah suspected nothing would be quite the same again. 2 weeks later, Sarah found herself standing outside Lincoln Elementary at 3:15 p.m., holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. She'd been doing this for 3 days, now parking across the street, watching the stream of children pour out of the building, looking for one particular dark-haired boy. She wasn't stalking. That's what she told herself. She was just making sure he was okay. On Tuesday, she'd seen him trip on the sidewalk and scrape his knee. She'd gripped her steering wheel and forced herself to stay in the car as Marcus appeared from somewhere and helped him up, brushing off his pants and checking the scrape with the practiced efficiency of a parent. On Wednesday, she'd watched Ethan play with a group of friends on the playground equipment, his laughter carrying across the street. He'd seemed completely normal, happy, healthy. Today, he saw her. Their eyes met through her windshield, and Ethan's face lit up with recognition. Before Sarah could panic or drive away or pretend this wasn't happening, he was walking toward her car. She rolled down the window. "Hi, Dr. Chen." "Hi, Ethan. How are you feeling?" "Good, my fever's all gone," he grinned. "Dad says I can go back to soccer practice this weekend." "That's wonderful." Ethan glanced back toward the school, then leaned closer to her window. "Are you here to see me?" The direct question, delivered with 7-year-old honesty, made Sarah's chest tight. "I was just making sure you were okay. You could come say hi, you know." Instead of sitting in your car. Heat flooded Sarah's cheeks. "I didn't want to interfere, Ethan," Marcus's voice carried across the parking lot. Sarah looked up to see him walking toward them, his expression unreadable. "Dad!" Ethan waved enthusiastically. "Dr. Chen came to see me." Marcus reached the car and looked through the window at Sarah. "Everything okay?" "I'm sorry." The words tumbled out. "I know this is inappropriate. I just wanted to make sure he was all right." "You could have called." "I don't have your number." Marcus studied her face for a moment, then pulled out his phone. "What's your number?" Sarah recited it, watching as he typed it in. "There," he said. "Now you don't have to sit in your car like a stalker." Ethan giggled. "You do look kind of like a stalker." "Ethan," Marcus warned, but he was trying not to smile. Sarah felt her face burn. "I'll go." "I'm sorry, Would you like to get coffee sometime?" Marcus interrupted. "To talk?" The offer caught her off guard. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. But maybe we should. Figure out what this looks like." Sarah glanced at Ethan, who was watching this exchange with bright interest. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'd like that. Saturday morning? Ethan has soccer practice at 9. We could meet after." "Where?" "There's a place called Grounds on 5th Street. Do you know it?" Sarah nodded. She knew it well. She'd spent countless hours there during medical school, studying over endless cups of coffee. 11 o'clock? Marcus suggested. "I'll be there." "Can I come too?" Ethan asked. Marcus and Sarah looked at each other over his head. "Maybe next time, buddy," Marcus said. "This is a grown-up conversation." Ethan's face fell slightly, but he nodded. "Okay. But you'll tell me what you talk about?" "Some of it," Marcus said carefully. "The important parts?" "The important parts that are okay for 7-year-olds to know about." This seemed to satisfy Ethan. He turned back to Sarah. "I'm glad you're not sick anymore." It took Sarah a moment to realize he was talking about the night at the hospital, how she'd seemed upset, emotional. In his mind, she'd been sick too. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm feeling much better." "Good. See you later, Dr. Lesevenace." Chen. He ran back toward the school, where other children were being picked up by parents and babysitters. Normal pickup routine. Normal childhood. Marcus lingered by her car window. "Sarah?" She looked up at him. "It's okay that you wanted to check on him, but next time, just call." She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Saturday?" he said. 11 o'clock. Sarah drove home through downtown Denver, her hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. She'd crossed a line this week, and they all knew it. But Marcus hadn't seemed angry, just protective, careful. She could respect that. Saturday morning came gray and drizzly. Sarah arrived at grounds 10 minutes early and claimed a corner table, ordering a latte she was too nervous to drink. Marcus walked in at exactly 11 o'clock, shaking rain from his jacket. He looked different out of the hospital setting, younger, less formal, just a regular single dad in jeans and a sweater. "How was soccer practice?" Sarah asked as he sat down. "Muddy," Marcus smiled. "Ethan scored twice, so he's pretty happy about life right now. He's good at it? He's fast. And fearless, which sometimes scares me to death." Sarah could picture Ethan running across a field, chasing a ball with that intense focus she'd seen him apply to everything. "Coffee?" Marcus asked, gesturing toward the counter. "I'm okay for now." He ordered a black coffee and returned to the table. For a moment they sat in awkward silence. "So," Marcus said finally, "this is strange. Very strange. I've been thinking about it all week. What to say, how to handle this." He took a sip of his coffee. "I don't think there's a guidebook for this situation." "Probably not." "Can I ask you something?" Sarah nodded. "That night at the hospital when you first saw him, what was that like?" Sarah stared into her latte, watching the foam dissolve. "Like being struck by lightning. He looked exactly like I remembered, but older, more himself, if that makes sense." "It does." "What about you? What was it like realizing I was his birth mother?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Terrifying," he said finally. "My first thought was that you were going to try to take him away. I wouldn't do that. I know that now, but in that moment, he's everything to me, Sarah. He's my whole world." The raw honesty in his voice made Sarah's throat tight. "I can see that. The way you are with him, it's beautiful." "He saved my life," Marcus said quietly. "After Emma died, I was drowning. Adopting Ethan gave me a reason to keep going." "Tell me about Emma." Marcus's face softened. "She would have loved him so much. She always wanted kids, and she would have been such a good mother." He paused. "Sometimes I feel guilty that she never got to meet him. She would be proud of the father you've become." "I hope so." Marcus looked out the window at the rain. "What about you? Ever get married? Other kids?" Sarah shook her head. "I've been focused on my career. Becoming a doctor took everything I had. No regrets about that?" "Some days." Sarah traced the rim of her cup with one finger. "I've always wondered if I gave up the wrong thing. If I should have found a way to keep him and still become a doctor. It wouldn't have been easy." "No, but maybe it would have been worth it." They sat in silence for a moment, watching other customers come and go. Young couples, families with small children, students with laptops and textbooks. Normal Saturday morning life. "Can I ask about the Hendersons?" Sarah said finally. "What happened there?" Marcus's expression darkened. "From what I could piece together from the social workers, they took him home and then realized they weren't ready for an active toddler. Apparently they'd imagined a quieter child. More manageable." Sarah felt sick. "So they just gave him back?" "When he was 2. Like returning a defective appliance." Marcus's voice was tight with controlled anger. "He spent the next 2 years bouncing between foster homes. Some good, some not so good. And then you found him. I was looking through profiles of kids who needed homes. His picture just stopped me cold. He was 4 years old, sitting in a chair that was too big for him, trying to smile for the camera. But his eyes looked so sad." Sarah closed her eyes, trying not to picture it. "The social worker said he'd been returned twice. That he was difficult to place because he was quiet and withdrawn. They thought maybe he had developmental delays. But he didn't. He was traumatized. He'd learned not to get attached because people kept leaving." Marcus's hands tightened around his coffee cup. "It took months before he'd let me hug him. Even longer before he called me Dad." Sarah felt tears threatening. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." It's not your fault. You trusted the system. The system failed him. But I should have. You should have what? Been psychic? Known that a family who passed all the background checks and home studies would change their minds? Marcus leaned forward. Sarah, you were 19 years old. You made the best decision you could with the information you had. It wasn't good enough. It led him to me eventually. Maybe that was always supposed to happen. Sarah looked up at him. Do you really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, all that pain his pain, your pain it was for nothing. They sat quietly for a moment, processing the weight of Ethan's early years. He seems happy now, Sarah said finally. He is. Most of the time. Marcus smiled slightly. He still has nightmares sometimes. Still gets anxious when I'm late picking him up from school. But he's learned to trust that I'm not going anywhere. Good. Sarah, can I ask what you want from this? From knowing him? The question she'd been asking herself for 2 weeks. I don't know, she said honestly. I never thought I'd see him again. I never let myself hope for it. But now you have. Now I have. Sarah met his eyes. I don't want to disrupt his life. I don't want to confuse him or make things harder for either of you, but if there's a way, if there's a place for me in his life, even a small one, what would that look like? Sarah had been thinking about this constantly. Maybe we could meet for lunch sometimes? Or I could come to one of his soccer games. I just want to know him, watch him grow up, be part of his life in whatever way works for your family. Marcus studied her face. You're not going to disappear again? The question hit her like a physical blow. What do you mean? I mean, if we do this, if we let you into his life, you can't change your mind in 6 months and decide it's too complicated. He's already been abandoned enough. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. I understand. Do you? Because he's going to get attached to you. He's already started to. And if you walk away again, I won't walk away. How can you be sure? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the last 2 weeks. The way she'd found herself checking her phone, hoping Marcus would text with updates. The way she'd driven by the school just to catch a glimpse of her son. The way her whole world had shifted the moment she saw Ethan's face in that hospital room. Because I've been thinking about him every day for 8 years, she said finally. Because seeing him again didn't scare me away, it made me realize how much I've missed. Because I don't want to miss anymore. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay. We'll try it. Slowly, carefully, with lots of communication. Sarah felt relief flood through her. Thank you. But we do this on Ethan's terms, Marcus continued. If he gets confused or upset, we slow down. If this starts affecting him negatively in any way, we stop. Agreed. And we're honest with him. About everything. Age appropriately, but honest. Of course. Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. He has a soccer game next Saturday at 10 a.m. Riverside Park, Field 3. If you want to come watch. Sarah's heart jumped. Really? Just to watch, from the sidelines. Like any other family friend. I'd love that. And maybe afterward, if he wants to, we could all get lunch. Nothing fancy. Just pizza or something. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. But Sarah? She looked up. This is a trial run. For all of us. If it doesn't work, if it's too hard or too complicated, we have to be willing to step back. I understand. Marcus finished his coffee and stood. I should get home. Ethan's probably driving Mrs. Patterson crazy. Mrs. Patterson? His babysitter. She's been with him since I adopted him. Sarah filed away this information, another piece of her son's life she hadn't known about. Marcus? She called as he reached for his jacket. Yeah? Thank you. For being willing to try this. He studied her face for a moment. He's going to want to know about you. About his birth father. About why you gave him up. About what your life was like when he was born. Are you ready for those questions? Sarah's stomach clenched. She'd been so focused on getting to know Ethan that she hadn't fully considered what he might want to know about her. I'll try to be. Good. Marcus headed toward the door, then turned back one more time. Sarah? For what it's worth, I think Emma would have liked you." He left her sitting at the corner table, staring out at the rain, trying to imagine what it would feel like to watch her son play soccer. To be part of his Saturday afternoon, even in the smallest way. For the first time in 8 years, she allowed herself to hope. The soccer field was chaos in the best possible way. 7-year-olds chased a ball in a pack, parents shouted encouragement from folding chairs, and the smell of fresh-cut grass mixed with coffee from the concession stand. Sarah stood at the edge of the field, hands wrapped around a hot chocolate she'd bought to have something to do with her nervous energy. She'd been here for 10 minutes, watching the warm-ups, looking for number 7. There he was. Ethan wore a bright blue jersey and shin guards that looked too big for his skinny legs. His hair stuck up in the back where he'd slept on it wrong, and he was bouncing on his toes with excitement. Sarah had imagined this moment for a week, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of watching her son play soccer. The way he ran with complete abandon, the fierce concentration on his face as he kicked the ball, the pure joy when he scored during warm-ups. "Sarah?" She turned to find Marcus approaching with a folding chair under one arm and a travel mug in his other hand. "You made it?" he said. "I wasn't sure if I should sit with you or, of course you should sit with me. You're here to watch Ethan, right?" Sarah nodded, following him to a spot along the sideline. Marcus set up the chair for her, then settled into his own. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified." Marcus smiled. "Me too, every game. Last week he collided with another kid, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack." "Is he okay?" He popped right up and kept playing. They're tougher than they look. On the field, Ethan was talking animatedly to his teammates. One of them pointed toward the sideline, and Ethan's eyes found Sarah. His face lit up, and he waved enthusiastically. Sarah waved back, her chest tight with emotion. "He's been talking about you all week," Marcus said quietly. "Really?" "Asking questions about what you were like when you were his age, whether you played sports, if you liked the same foods he does." "What did you tell him?" "That I didn't know, but maybe he could ask you himself someday." The referee blew a whistle, and the game began. Sarah tried to follow the action, but her eyes kept finding Ethan. The way he communicated with his teammates, the determination on his face, the complete unself-consciousness of childhood. "He's good," she said. "He's fearless." Sometimes too fearless. Marcus winced as Ethan dove for a ball and rolled in the grass. "My blood pressure can't take much more of this." Sarah laughed. "How long has he been playing?" 2 years. Since he turned 5. It was the first thing he ever showed real enthusiasm for. "What else does he like?" "Reading, building things with Legos. He's obsessed with Dinosaur Scan, tell you more about the Cretaceous period than most college students." Sarah filed away these details, hungry for every piece of information about her son's life. Halfway through the first half, Ethan broke away from the pack with the ball. Sarah found herself standing without realizing it, watching as he ran toward the goal. "Come on, buddy," Marcus muttered beside her. Ethan drew back his leg and kicked. The ball sailed past the goalkeeper and into the net. "Goal!" Marcus shouted, jumping to his feet. Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes as Ethan ran toward the sideline, arms raised in triumph. His teammates mobbed him, and he disappeared in a pile of blue jerseys and laughter. "Did you see that?" Sarah asked, not caring that she was crying. "I saw it." Marcus was grinning. His first goal of the season. When Ethan emerged from the celebration, he looked directly at Sarah and Marcus, pointing at the goal and then at them. His smile was so bright it could have powered the whole field. Sarah waved back, her heart so full she thought it might burst. The rest of the game passed in a blur. Ethan scored again in the second half, and his team won 3-1. As the players lined up to shake hands with the other team, Sarah felt Marcus's hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked. I never thought I'd get to see this. Any of this? There will be more games." "If you want." Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. After the handshakes, Ethan ran over to them, grass stains on his knees and pure happiness on his face. "Did you see my goals?" he asked Sarah. I saw them both. You were amazing. That first one was lucky, but the second one was skill, Ethan said seriously. Marcus laughed. Where did you learn to be so modest? Coach says we should be humble in victory and gracious in defeat. Coach is a smart man, Sarah said. Are we still getting pizza? Ethan asked, looking between the two adults. Sarah glanced at Marcus, who nodded. If you want to, Marcus said. Sarah, are you free for lunch? I'd love that. They drove separately to a family pizza place near the park. Sarah followed Marcus's SUV, her hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. This was happening. She was going to have lunch with her son. The restaurant was crowded with other families, the noise level cheerfully chaotic. They found a booth in the back, and Ethan slid in next to Sarah without hesitation. Can we get pepperoni? He asked. Of course, Marcus said. What do you like, Sarah? Pepperoni is perfect. While they waited for their food, Ethan peppered Sarah with questions. What was her favorite color? Did she like soccer? Had she ever been to Disney World? What kind of car did she drive? Sarah answered each question carefully, aware that Marcus was listening to every word. My favorite color is green, she said. I never played soccer, but I ran track in high school. I've never been to Disney World, but I'd like to go someday. And I drive a blue Honda. Dad's car is gray, Ethan reported. And we went to Disney World last year. It was awesome. Tell me about it, Sarah said. Ethan launched into a detailed description of every ride, every attraction, every moment of their trip. Sarah listened with complete attention, storing away every detail. Maybe you could come with us next time, Ethan said suddenly. Sarah felt Marcus tense across the table. That would be fun to think about, Sarah said carefully, but that's a decision for your dad to make. Dad? Could she come? Marcus looked at Sarah, then back at his son. Maybe someday, buddy. Let's see how things go. The pizza arrived, providing a welcome distraction. Ethan ate with the enthusiasm of a growing boy who'd just played 90 minutes of soccer. Sarah, he said between bites, can I ask you something kind of serious? Of course. When I was a baby, did you hold me? The question caught Sarah completely off guard. She glanced at Marcus, who nodded slightly. Yes, she said quietly. I held you a lot when you were very little. Did you sing to me? Sarah's throat tightened. I did. I used to sing you lullabies. What songs? Twinkle, twinkle, little star. You are my sunshine. Songs my mom used to sing to me. Ethan considered this seriously. I like You Are My Sunshine. Dad sings it to me sometimes when I can't sleep. Sarah looked at Marcus in surprise. It seemed like something you might have sung to him, Marcus said quietly. The thoughtfulness of that gesture, Marcus choosing a lullaby he thought Sarah might have used, made her eyes fill with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Why did you have to give me away? Ethan asked suddenly, the question she'd been dreading. Sarah looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. I was very young, she said carefully. Only 19, which seems like a grown-up to you but felt very young to me. I was still in school, and I didn't have any family to help me take care of a baby. But you loved me? So much. More than I ever thought it was possible to love someone. Then why didn't you try harder to keep me? The question hit like a physical blow. Sarah took a shaky breath. Because I wanted you to have the best life possible. I wanted you to have 2 parents who were ready for a baby, who had a house and money and time to take care of you properly. But I ended up in foster care anyway. Yes. And that wasn't supposed to happen. The family I chose for you, they promised they would love you forever. When they didn't keep that promise, it broke my heart. Are you mad at them? Sarah considered this. I'm sad about what happened. But I'm not mad anymore, because if they had kept their promise, you never would have found your dad. Ethan looked at Marcus, then back at Sarah. So it worked out okay in the end? I think it worked out exactly the way it was supposed to, Sarah said. Good. Ethan took another bite of pizza. I'm glad I found Dad, and I'm glad you found us too. The simple acceptance in his voice made Sarah's chest tight with emotion. They finished lunch talking about lighter things, Ethan's favorite subjects in school, his best friend Tyler, the book series he was reading, normal getting-to-know-you conversation. As they prepared to leave, Ethan turned to Sarah. "Can you come to my next game?" Sarah looked at Marcus, who nodded. "I'd love to," she said. "And maybe next time we could get ice cream instead of pizza? If your dad says it's okay." "Dad?" Marcus smiled. "We'll see." Outside the restaurant, they stood in the parking lot for a moment, no one quite ready to end the afternoon. "Thank you," Sarah said to Marcus, "for letting me be part of this." "Thank you for coming." Ethan looked between the two adults. "Are you guys going to be friends now?" "I hope so," Sarah said. "Good. That makes everything easier." As Sarah drove home, she couldn't stop smiling. She'd watched her son play soccer. She'd eaten lunch with him. She'd answered his questions and heard about his life and felt, for the first time in 8 years, like a part of his world. It wasn't enough, it might never be enough, but it was a beginning, and for now, that felt like everything. That night, her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "He asked me to tell you that you're invited to his school's spring concert next Friday at 7 p.m. He's singing a solo." Sarah stared at the message, her heart racing. "I'll be there," she typed back. "He'll be excited. He's been practicing for weeks." "What's the song?" "You Are My Sunshine." Sarah set down her phone and cried, not from sadness this time, but from the overwhelming joy of being wanted, of being included, of having a place, however small, in her son's life. She was going to hear Ethan sing the song she used to sing to him when he was a baby. Some circles, she realized, were meant to close. The elementary school auditorium hummed with nervous energy. Parents adjusted cameras, siblings fidgeted in their seats, and somewhere behind the closed curtains, second graders prepared for their spring concert. Sarah sat in the 4th row, having arrived 20 minutes early to make sure she got a good seat. She'd changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on a simple blue dress that seemed appropriate for a school concert without trying too hard. Marcus slid into the seat next to her 5 minutes before the show started. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Last-minute wardrobe crisis. Ethan decided his shirt was too itchy and we had to find a different one." "Is he nervous?" "Terrified. He threw up twice this morning." Marcus smiled. "But he's excited too. He's been humming that song non-stop for 2 weeks." The lights dimmed, and the curtain opened to reveal 37-year-olds in matching white shirts and dark pants, arranged in 3 neat rows. Sarah's eyes found Ethan immediately front row, 3rd from the left, standing perfectly still with his hands clasped behind his back. The music teacher introduced the program, and the children began with a group song about spring flowers. Their voices were sweet and slightly off-key, and Sarah found herself smiling at the earnest concentration on their faces. 3 songs in, the teacher stepped forward with a microphone. "Our next song is a special one," she announced. Ethan Reeves will be performing "You Are My Sunshine" as a solo, with the chorus joining in for the refrain. Sarah's breath caught as Ethan stepped forward. He looked so small standing alone in front of the microphone, but his voice when he began to sing was clear and true. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Sarah felt tears start immediately. This was the song she'd sung to him during those long nights when he was an infant, when she was exhausted and scared and trying to convince herself she was doing the right thing. The song she'd hummed while she held him for the last time before signing the adoption papers. "You make me happy when skies are gray." His voice wavered slightly on the high notes, but he kept going, his eyes scanning the audience until they found her and Marcus. When he saw them, his smile widened and his voice grew stronger. "You'll never know, dear, how much I love you." Sarah was crying openly now, not caring who saw. Marcus reached over and took her hand, squeezing gently. "Please don't take my sunshine away." The chorus of children joined in for the refrain, their voices blending together in imperfect harmony. But Sarah only heard Ethan, singing the words she'd whispered to him 8 years ago, when she'd thought she was saying goodbye forever. The song ended to thunderous applause. Ethan stepped back into the group, his face glowing with pride and relief. He was amazing, Sarah whispered. He was, Marcus agreed. Emma would have been so proud. They sat through the rest of the concert songs about rainbows and friendship and growing up. But Sarah's mind kept returning to those few minutes when her son had stood alone on stage, singing their song. When the curtain closed for the final time, parents began filing out to meet their children in the lobby. Sarah hung back, uncertain about the protocol. "Come on," Marcus said. "He'll want to see you." The lobby was chaos, children still buzzing with performance energy, parents offering congratulations, teachers trying to maintain some semblance of order. Sarah spotted Ethan near the back wall, surrounded by classmates and their families. When he saw her approaching, he broke away from the group and ran toward her. "Did you hear me sing?" he asked, breathless with excitement. "I heard every word," Sarah said, crouching down to his level. "You were incredible. I was so scared I was going to forget the words, but then I saw you and Dad and I remembered everything. You sounded like a professional singer." Ethan beamed. "Mrs. Patterson said I should think about someone I love when I sing, so I thought about you and Dad." The casual way he included her in that list made Sarah's heart skip. "That was perfect advice," she managed. "Ethan," a boy about his age appeared at his elbow. "My mom wants to meet your birth mom." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. She looked up to see a woman approaching with a curious expression. "Tyler's mom," Marcus said quietly. "Nice woman, but she asks a lot of questions." "Hi." The woman extended her hand to Sarah. "I'm Jennifer Patterson. Tyler's told me so much about Ethan's birth mother visiting." Sarah shook her hand, acutely aware that several other parents had turned to listen. "It's nice to meet you," Sarah said carefully. "What an interesting situation," Jennifer continued. "I can't imagine how emotional this must be for everyone involved." "Mom," Tyler tugged on his mother's sleeve, "can we go get ice cream now?" "Of course, sweetie." Jennifer turned back to Sarah. "I hope we'll see more of you at school events." As they walked away, Sarah felt exposed and uncertain. She hadn't considered that her presence would be noteworthy to other parents, that her relationship to Ethan would become school gossip. "Hey," Marcus said quietly, reading her expression. "Don't worry about them. This is new for everyone. I don't want to cause problems for you or Ethan. You're not causing problems. You're part of his family. Some people will need time to adjust to that. Part of his family." The words sent warmth through Sarah's chest. "Can we go celebrate?" Ethan asked, oblivious to the adult conversation happening around him. "I want ice cream." "Ice cream sounds perfect," Marcus said. They drove to an ice cream shop near the school, the same place Sarah remembered going as a child after her own school concerts. The teenage girl behind the counter looked bored until she saw Ethan's still formal concert clothes. "Let me guess," she said. "School performance?" "I sang a solo," Ethan announced proudly. "Very cool. What flavor do you want?" Ethan studied the options seriously. "Chocolate chip cookie dough, 2 scoops." "Living dangerously," the girl said with a smile. "I like it." They found a booth in the back, away from the dinner crowd. Ethan attacked his ice cream with the intensity of someone who'd just survived a major performance. "So," Marcus said to Sarah, "how did it feel, hearing him sing that song?" Sarah stirred her vanilla ice cream, thinking about how to answer. "Like something I'd lost was being given back to me," she said finally. "I used to sing that song to him when he was a baby. I never thought I'd hear it again." "I know," Marcus said quietly. "That's why I taught it to him." Sarah looked up in surprise. "You chose that song on purpose?" "When he wanted to audition for a solo, I suggested a few options. That one felt right. The thoughtfulness of it, Marcus deliberately choosing a song that connected Sarah to Ethan's past made her eyes fill again. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me. He's your son, too." Ethan looked up from his ice cream. "Are you crying again?" "You cry a lot." "Happy tears," Sarah said. "Sometimes when you're really happy, you cry. That's weird." "It is weird, but it's also kind of wonderful." They finished their ice cream as the sun set outside the windows. Other families came and went, celebrating their own children's performances, their own small milestones. I should probably get him home, Marcus said eventually. It's a school night. Sarah nodded, though she didn't want the evening to end. Thank you for inviting me, she said. It was everything. There will be more concerts, more soccer games, more chances to be part of things. I'd like that. As they prepared to leave, Ethan turned to Sarah. Can I ask you something? Always. When you used to sing that song to me when I was a baby, did you mean it? Sarah knelt down to his level, looking into those serious dark eyes. Every word, she said. You were my sunshine then, and you still are. Good, Ethan said, satisfied, because you're kind of my sunshine too now. He hugged her then, quick and fierce, before running to catch up with Marcus. Sarah stood in the parking lot, watching them drive away, her heart so full it felt like it might overflow. 3 months ago, she'd been a pediatric emergency doctor with a carefully ordered life and a carefully managed grief. Now she was something she'd never expected to be again. A mother. Not in the traditional sense. Marcus would always be Ethan's real parent, the one who made the daily decisions and provided the stability and love. But she was part of his story now, part of his constellation of people who cared about him. It wasn't the motherhood she'd imagined at 19. It was something different, something she was still learning to navigate. But as she drove home, through the quiet streets of Denver, humming, "You Are My Sunshine" under her breath, Sarah realized it might be exactly the kind of motherhood she was meant for. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus as she pulled into her driveway. Thank you for being there tonight. It meant everything to him. Thank you for letting me be there, she typed back. Same time next Saturday for soccer? I'll be there. Sarah sat in her car for a moment, looking up at the stars just becoming visible in the darkening sky. Somewhere across the city, her son was probably getting ready for bed, maybe humming the song he'd performed tonight. Tomorrow she would go back to being Dr. Chen, taking care of other people's children in the emergency room. But Saturday, she would be something more. She would be Ethan's birth mother, cheering from the sidelines, part of the small, imperfect, beautiful family they were slowly learning to become. Some stories, Sarah thought as she finally went inside, don't end the way you expect them to. Sometimes they just begin again.